think we all have certain fears when it comes to any car you own that's not your daily driver, either a project car or, you know, something like my 03 Terminator, where something I like to drive, go to car shows with, car meets, stuff like that, mod, do video stuff with. But there's always a fear of something happening to your car. I think some of those things that really stand out a lot are theft, like if it gets stolen, if it's crashed or wrecked, catches on fire, stuff like that. Those things are at least backed by insurance. One thing that is not backed by insurance is if you blow a motor in one of these cars, and I think it's probably one of the top things that 03, 04 Cobra owners often have in the back of their head, that they never want to have to face that reality of if they blow a motor, because of the enormous cost that it comes with having to replace one of these motors or rebuilding one. So what I kind of wanted to touch on was what are some of those options that you can do where if you lose a motor in one of these, and that can vary from an all-out rebuild or having to replace the entire thing, like if you lose your block as well. So kind of touch on both and options that I've seen other people do and what I would consider doing if I ever lost a motor in mine. I bring this up because a long-term subscriber, Tominator, who lives in the kind of the general area that I live in within New England, he lost a motor in his Terminator a few years ago. And there's all kinds of various reasons for why these can blow. I'm not going to get into every single reason for why it can happen, but the particular reason with his is that his fuel rail pressure sensor basically died on him, and by the time that he realized that there was a problem, the damage had been done and it was over. In his particular case, the engine had already been bore 20 over, and the cylinder walls got scored pretty bad, so there wasn't enough material left to hold that out and have enough material to make the engine safe to drive at that point at a high level, because there's not enough material between the cylinder walls at that point. So in his case, he had to get a whole new engine with the block. So we'll kind of start there, where if you need a block, what are the options? Another option other than the 03, 04 Cobra iron block is you could go to an aluminum block. There's a couple of options you can do: the Texide block and the WAP blocks. Both are aluminum, but they're slightly different as far as the power levels go, what they will consider to hold. But the WAP blocks have a diamond pattern in the valley, and the Texide blocks have basically squares, like a tic-tac-toe. That's one way to tell the difference between the two. And I've often considered just buying a Texide block just to have one. I don't know if it's something I'm really going to do. I've thought about doing it just to have a block on hand, just in case I ever needed it, or just in case I ever wanted to build like another engine, but I don't really know what the point would really be if I wasn't going to use it. But I think I would like to have a block just to have one, especially the Texide blocks, just because I don't know if we'll ever reach that point where they become extremely hard to find. You can still get them now, but I think we may get to a point where those are really difficult to source, and it may not be a bad idea just to have one on hand. Another great block is a 5.3 modular block from Ford Performance. This is a little more expensive in some cases, depending on, Texide blocks can get expensive too, but this is a block directly from Ford Performance, and you can get this either as a shore block or just the block itself. And with the rotating assembly in it with the shore block, it gets kind of pricey. It's a little up there as far as the price-wise goes. The shore block itself is quite expensive. You're looking at almost $8,000, but it has a real good rotating assembly in it already. So basically you just need your cylinder heads, all the other crap to go on it. And I guess it depends on the damage of your motor. If your valve train is still good and your heads are still good, you can swap that over. Most likely your rotator and assembly won't be good, but that's where buying the shore block comes into play, where it may not be a bad idea. Now you can just try to find a whole engine just to drop in and not mess with trying to find a short block or just the block itself and having it built or doing it on your own. But if you want to stick with the 03-04 Cobra platform, the whole engines are expensive and finding them is tough. You can't just go to Facebook Marketplace or any place that sources out Cobra parts for rent Cobras. They don't always have an entire engine assembly on hand. And sometimes these are sold as the whole drivetrain with the transmission with it. Whether they split that up or not, who knows? But they can get pretty pricey. Now this is my least favorite option out of everything, would be to coyote swap an 03-04 Cobra. The engines are extremely powerful, they're plentiful. Overall, they're not too bad cost-wise, but I just I couldn't bring myself to put a coyote engine in an 03-04 Cobra. Other platforms, great, like if you have a GT, 03-04 GT, and you coyote swap it, that's great, but the Cobras, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I wouldn't be able to do it. So now it comes down to, what would I personally do if I ever had engine issues with this where I couldn't save the block and I had to completely start over with everything? Honestly, what I would do is I would try to find a textured block. If my heads were still good, I would use those, and if not, I would find a set of 9-thread heads. This has a 4-thread heads on it, which are perfectly fine, but you know, I would most likely look for the 9-thread ones just for that little bit of extra added security, even though I have no problems with the 4-thread heads at all in my 03. Now, there's nothing I would be able to do quick. The car would be down a long time, but I would take that opportunity to really dress the engine up a lot and make it look really, really presentable for car shows. A lot of powder coating, a lot of cleaning up, so it wouldn't be just drop the engine out, stuff in a new one real quick and call it good. I would take the time to really go over everything really well. So out of all those options, what would you personally pick if you lost the engine in your 03-04 Cobra or any other Mustang or car that you have? Or did I miss some obvious options that would be a good replacement for what comes in these cars from the factory? Let me know in the comments down below. If you did make it this far, make sure to leave it a like. The sub button is also down below if you're new here, but above all else, thanks for watching.